My name is Maya Rivera, and this is the story of how the man I love most in this world stopped trusting me, and how the truth almost came too late. When I first met Ethan Cruz, I was 22. He was 25, confident, kind, and funny in a quiet way. He worked as an architect in a small construction firm in Makati, and I was a new intern in the company's accounting department. The first time he smiled at me, I spilled my coffee. He laughed and said, "You're the first person to make a mess on your first day." We both laughed, and somehow that became the start of something beautiful. We started talking every day, in the cafeteria, at the bus stop, even during lunch breaks. He'd always bring me pandesal and coffee. Sometimes he'd tease me about my serious face when I was balancing numbers. By the end of 3 months, we were inseparable. People at work started calling us office sweethearts. But we didn't care. We were happy. After 1 year, Ethan got promoted. He started earning more, and he told me, "Someday I'll build you a house with my own hands." I laughed and said, "Just make sure it doesn't collapse." He smiled and said, "Never, because it'll be built with love." Those were the best days of my life. But things started changing when his mother fell sick. Ethan became distant, always worried, always tired. I tried to understand, but he started snapping at me for small things. One night, while I was staying late in the office, my childhood friend Leo came to pick me up. He was a doctor, and he had just returned from the province. When Ethan came to the office unexpectedly and saw Leo waiting for me at the gate, he froze. I introduced them quickly, smiling. "Ethan, this is Leo, my childhood friend. He just got back from Bohol." Ethan smiled politely, but I saw something in his eyes. Something changed that night. He became quiet in the car. When I tried to talk, he said, "So that's Leo, huh? The one you always mention?" I nodded. "Yes, he's like a brother to me." He didn't say anything else. The next few weeks were strange. Ethan became cold. He stopped texting as much. And when I called, he'd always say he was busy. I tried not to overthink, but something was wrong. One day, after work, I saw him standing near the parking lot, talking to a woman. She was tall, pretty, and well-dressed. They looked serious. When I asked him about it later, he said, "She's just a client." But his eyes didn't meet mine. That night, I cried myself to sleep for the first time since we met. Still, I kept trying. I visited his mother in the hospital, brought food, helped with bills, but the wall between us kept growing. Then one evening, after work, I got a call. It was Leo. Panicked. He said, "Maya, I need your help. There has been an accident near the clinic." Without thinking, I rushed out. When I arrived, Leo was bleeding, and we rushed him to the hospital. He was unconscious, and I stayed all night by his side praying. At 2 a.m., Ethan called. Dabby I answered with a shaking voice. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I couldn't call. Leo had an accident." But he cut me off. "I saw you," he said coldly. "I saw you holding his hand." I froze. "Ethan, it's not what you think." But he hung up. I tried to call again. He didn't answer. I texted him, explaining everything, but he never replied. 2 days later, he came to my apartment. His eyes were red, his face hard. He threw a small bracelet on the table, the one he gave me on our first anniversary. "I hope he makes you happy," he said quietly and walked out. I tried to stop him, crying, "Ethan, please listen." But he didn't even look back. That was the day my world ended. He thought I cheated. He thought Leo was more than a friend. But what he didn't know was that Leo risked his life to save mine that night, and that was only the beginning of a truth he was never ready to hear. After Ethan left, my apartment became quiet, too quiet. For days, I stared at the bracelet he had thrown on my table. It used to mean love. Now it just felt heavy, like a reminder of how fast everything could fall apart. I tried calling him again and again. Sometimes the phone would ring twice before cutting off. Other times, it went straight to voicemail. He didn't want to hear me. He didn't want to believe me. I still went to work because I didn't want to look weak, but every time I saw him in the hallway, he acted like I didn't exist. He'd walk past me like a stranger. Even when our eyes met by accident, he'd look away first. Everyone in the office started whispering, "Did you hear? Ethan and Maya broke up." I think she was seeing another guy. She was too close to that doctor friend. Every rumor was like a knife. And the worst part? Ethan didn't defend me. One day during lunch, my coworker Anna came to sit with me. She whispered, "Maya, are you okay? Ethan's been spending time with that new client, Clarice, I think." My heart dropped. Clarice, the same woman I had seen him talking to near the parking lot weeks ago. I tried to smile. "He can do what he wants," I said. But inside, I was breaking. Meanwhile, Leo was still recovering at the hospital. He had fractured his leg and suffered deep cuts, but He was getting better. When he finally woke up, he told me what happened that night. Maya, you shouldn't blame yourself. That truck almost hit you. I pushed you away. That's how I got injured. Tears filled my eyes. I'm so sorry, Leo. He smiled faintly. You're worth it. You've always been like family to me. That night, as I sat by his hospital bed, I realized Ethan had no idea what truly happened. He only saw one moment, and he built a whole story around it. A week later, I got an email from HR. It said I was being transferred to another branch, a smaller office outside the city. No explanation, just an order. When I asked my manager why, she sighed and said, Maya, Ethan recommended it. He said it's better for team peace. I felt my knees go weak. He wanted me gone. He couldn't even look at me, and now he wanted to erase me. I packed my things quietly that day. When I walked past his office, he was inside with Clarice discussing a project. He didn't even look up. At home, I cried until I couldn't anymore. My mother called that night, and I tried to sound fine. But she could tell. Maya, Anak, sometimes people believe what they want to believe, she said softly. You can't chase someone who's already decided you're guilty. Her words stayed with me. 3 months passed. I worked quietly at the new branch in Cavaday. No Ethan, no whispers, just work in silence. And Leo was fully healed and sometimes called to check on me. He always asked, "Are you okay now?" I'd lie and say, "Yes," but I wasn't. Then one day, I saw a familiar face at the office door. It was Clarice, Ethan's client. She smiled politely and said, "Hi, Maya. I think we need to talk." My heart started pounding. She sat across from me and said calmly, "You don't know me well, but I think you deserve to know something." I frowned. About what? She hesitated, then whispered, "About Ethan and the reason he stopped trusting you." My hands went cold. That was the moment I knew. The story I thought I understood was only half of what really happened. Clarice sat across from me, her eyes darting nervously as if she wasn't sure whether to continue. "I didn't come here to hurt you, Maya," she began softly, "but I think you deserve to know what really happened." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What are you talking about?" I asked. She sighed. "The night Ethan saw you with Leo, someone sent him a message. A photo, actually." "A photo?" I frowned. "What photo?" She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "This one." My eyes widened. It was a picture. Me holding Leo in the rain, his head resting on my shoulder, blood staining my blouse. But the photo was cropped. You couldn't see the car wreck or the fact that I was crying for help. It looked intimate. "Who took this?" I asked, my voice trembling. Clarice bit her lip. "That's the thing. It came from someone inside the office. Ethan's assistant, Liza." I froze. "Liza?" She nodded slowly. "Ethan trusted her completely. She's been working with him for years. When she showed him that picture, she said she saw you and Leo kissing behind the hospital parking lot. Ethan was furious. He didn't even wait for you to explain. He told her to handle your transfer papers." The room began to spin. I held my chest, trying to breathe. Liza! The same woman who used to bring me coffee with a smile. The same one who once said, "You're lucky to have Ethan. He's 1 in a million." Clarice leaned forward. "I know this is hard, but you need to understand. Ethan didn't just get angry. He was destroyed. He said you were the only person he ever trusted completely. When he saw that picture, he shattered." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "But why would Liza do that? I never hurt her." Clarice hesitated, then whispered, "Because she's in love with him." My breath caught. She continued, "She's been in love with Ethan for years. Everyone in the office knew, but he didn't see it. You came in and suddenly he was smiling again, focused, alive. Liza couldn't handle it. She wanted you gone." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Everything made sense now. The cold glances, the quiet sabotage, the sudden transfer. It was never just about misunderstanding. It was manipulation. I wiped my tears. "Does Ethan know the truth now?" Clarice shook her head. "No, he still thinks you betrayed him. I tried to tell him, but he refuses to talk about you. It's like your name brings him pain." "Then why are you telling me this?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "Because I've seen what heartbreak does to people. You don't deserve this, and maybe he deserves to know what really happened." That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed everything in my mind. The accident, the rain, the photo, the lies. I realized I had 2 choices. to stay silent and let the truth die, or to face him again, even if it broke me all over. I opened my laptop and found Ethan's email address. My hands shook as I typed, "Subject, you deserve to know the truth. Ethan, I don't expect forgiveness, but I can't let a lie live between us forever. Meet me tomorrow at 6 p.m. The hospital where Leo was admitted that night. If you come, I'll show you what you never saw. Maya." The next day, I waited. The same hospital corridor, the same sound of rain against the windows. 6 p.m., 6:10, 6:30, he didn't come. Just as I was about to leave, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there he was. Ethan. His eyes were tired, his jaw tight. He stood there, silent, like he didn't know what to say. "Maya," he said finally, his voice low. "Why now?" I took a deep breath. "Because you believed a lie, and I let you." He frowned. "I saw it with my own eyes." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You saw what she wanted you to see." Then I handed him Clarice's phone, the photo and the original video clip Leo's nurse had sent me. In the video, you could see the car crash, the blood, the panic, and me crying for help. Ethan stared at it, frozen, his hands trembled. "Maya, He stepped back, his voice breaking. "What have I done?" The silence between us felt endless. Then softly he said, "I thought I lost you because of betrayal, but now I realize I lost you because I didn't trust you." Tears blurred my vision. "You didn't just lose me, Ethan. You destroyed me." He dropped his head, whispering, "I'm sorry." I turned away. Sorry doesn't fix 3 months of pain. And with that, I walked out, leaving him standing there, broken, holding the truth that came too late. Ethan couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the video again. Maya crying for help in the rain, holding Leo, the car wreck behind them. The guilt pressed on his chest like a heavy stone. He had accused the one person who loved him the most. He had destroyed her. He sat in his office long after midnight, staring at the photo Liza had once shown him, the same photo that started it all. He looked at it again, really looked this time, and noticed what he hadn't before, the reflection of flashing ambulance lights in the background. He whispered to himself, "How could I have missed that?" Just then the door opened. Liza stepped in, holding a file. "You're still here?" He turned slowly, his eyes dark. "Close the door." She froze, confused. "Ethan?" "Close. The door." Something in his voice made her obey instantly. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping the desk. "Tell me, Liza. The night you showed me that photo of Maya and Leo, where did you get it?" She swallowed. "A friend sent it. Someone who works at the hospital." He nodded slowly. "A friend." Then he looked straight at her. "And this friend, does he also work in your imagination?" Her lips parted slightly. I don't understand what you mean." He stood up suddenly, slamming his hand on the desk. "Don't lie to me, Liza," he shouted. "I saw the full video." Her face went pale. "The video that shows everything," Ethan continued, his voice trembling with fury. "The accident, the rain, Maya crying for help. You cropped it. You made it look like something else. Why, Liza?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "Because I loved you," she screamed. "You never saw me. I was always there, Ethan. I was the one who stayed up with you during long nights at work. I was the one who cared. But she walked in, smiled once, and you forgot I existed." Ethan stepped back, disbelief on his face. "You ruined her life because of jealousy?" he asked quietly. "I didn't mean to ruin it," she cried. "I just wanted her gone. I thought if she left, you'd finally notice me." Ethan shook his head slowly. "Notice you? You think this is love? Love doesn't destroy people, Liza. It protects them." She sank to her knees, sobbing, "I'm sorry, Ethan, please." "I didn't think it would go this far." He stared at her for a long moment, his jaw tight. "You need to leave, right now, before I call security." Liza looked up, her voice trembling. "Ethan, please! Now!" he barked. She grabbed her purse and ran out of the office in tears. When the door closed, Ethan sat down and buried his face in his hands. He felt empty. The anger, the guilt, the regret, it all crushed him. He picked up his phone and called Clarice. "Clarice?" he said quietly. "I know everything now. Thank you for telling Maya the truth. Do you know where she is?" Clarice hesitated. She's still at the hospital, I think. But Ethan, maybe you should give her some time. I've already wasted too much time, he said, hanging up. At the hospital, Maya sat by the window of the waiting room, holding a cup of cold coffee. She wasn't crying anymore, just tired. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. Ethan, I know everything now. I can't undo the past, but I need to see you. Please, one last time. She stared at the message for a long time, unsure if she wanted to reply. Part of her wanted to see him, to hear him apologize, to look him in the eye. Another part of her wanted to walk away forever. After a long pause, she typed back, Maya, tomorrow, 10 a.m., the park near our old house. The next morning, Ethan was already waiting at the park bench, the same spot where they had shared their first picnic, where he'd once promised never to hurt her. Maya arrived, wearing a simple white dress. Her eyes looked tired but calm. He stood up as soon as he saw her. Maya, he said softly. She didn't smile. You found out the truth. He nodded. I did, and I can't stop hating myself for it. She crossed her arms. You believed a picture over me, Ethan. You didn't even ask. You just decided I was guilty. I know, he whispered. I was broken. I thought I saw everything I needed to see, but I didn't. I let anger blind me. She looked away. And in that blindness, you killed everything we built. He stepped closer, voice shaking. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know, I never stopped loving you. She looked him in the eye for the first time in months. Love isn't enough anymore. He swallowed hard. Then what do I do? Let me heal, she said quietly. And maybe forgive yourself someday. She turned to leave, but before walking away, she whispered, Goodbye, Ethan. He watched her go, tears streaming down his face. For the first time, Ethan realized that love without trust is just pain wearing a pretty disguise. As he stood alone in the empty park, the wind blew softly through the trees, like a quiet reminder that sometimes the truth comes too late. Ethan couldn't get Maya out of his head after that meeting at the park. Her words kept echoing in his mind. Love isn't enough anymore. He went to work, but nothing made sense anymore. The office felt cold and empty. The laughter that once filled the halls now replaced with whispers about what happened between him and Lisa. Liza had resigned that morning, leaving a short letter on his desk filled with apologies and tears, but no words could erase the damage she caused. Ethan sat in his office staring at the letter before tearing it into pieces. He didn't want her sorry. He wanted back the time he lost, the trust he broke, the love he threw away because of one foolish moment of anger. Maya, on the other hand, was trying to rebuild her life. She transferred to another branch of her company, moved into a smaller apartment, and kept herself busy with work. She avoided anything that reminded her of Ethan, their favorite cafe, the park, the playlist they once made together. But every night when she lay on her bed, she still saw his face, the way he looked broken when he said, I never stopped loving you. It made her heart ache, but she refused to let herself feel it. She had promised she wouldn't go back to someone who didn't trust her. She had cried enough. One evening, while closing her laptop after work, Maya received a message from an unknown number. It read, I know you don't owe me anything, but please meet me tomorrow at the orphanage near St. Paul's Church. It's important. She almost deleted it immediately, but then paused. She recognized the way the message was written. It was Ethan. She sighed and tossed her phone on the couch, whispering, What else does he want? Still, something deep inside her told her to go. The next morning, curiosity got the best of her. She arrived at the orphanage just before noon. The children were playing outside, their laughter filling the air. She spotted Ethan near the gate, talking to the headmistress. He looked tired, older somehow, but when he saw her, his eyes softened. She crossed her arms. Why am I here, Ethan? He smiled faintly. I started a donation project for this place a month ago. I wanted you to see it. This was the orphanage you always said you wanted to help. She frowned, confused. Why? He looked down. Because it was your dream, and I ruined everything else you loved. I just wanted to give something back, even if you never forgive me. She looked around, the new paint on the walls, the repaired swings, the little garden full of bright flowers. She felt a lump in her throat. The headmistress walked up to her, smiling. You must be Maya. Ethan told us this was all your idea years ago. He said you inspired him. Maya blinked back tears. She turned to Ethan and whispered, "You did this? For me?" He nodded slowly. "For you. For the person I hurt." He took a deep breath. "Maya, I don't expect us to be together again. I just want to make peace with what I broke." For the first time in months, Maya felt something shift inside her. The anger she'd been holding on to began to melt away. After a long silence, she said softly, "People make mistakes, Ethan, but some mistakes change everything." He looked at her and replied, "I know, and that's why I'll never take trust for granted again." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried both sadness and peace. "Good," she said, "because one day, when someone else loves me, I want to trust again too." Ethan's eyes dimmed a little, but he nodded. "You deserve that." As she turned to leave, the children ran up to them, handing them flowers, tiny daisies and roses from the garden. Maya looked at one and said quietly, "Maybe forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." She realized he wasn't trying to buy her forgiveness. He was trying to grow, to understand, to heal the right way. She didn't say anything. She just nodded and walked toward the children, watching them laugh and play. Ethan joined her quietly. They stood side by side, not as lovers, but as two people learning how to let go. Ethan smiled sadly. Maybe it just means remembering without hate. That day, as Maya walked away from the orphanage, she felt lighter. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing. The story between her and Ethan had finally found peace, even if it didn't end with love. And for Ethan, watching her disappear down the road, he finally understood that sometimes love's greatest act isn't holding on. It's knowing when to let go. Months passed after that conference, and life moved on quietly for both of them. Maya's career grew stronger. Her confidence bloomed again, and she began to find happiness in the small things. Morning coffee, laughter with coworkers, and the smiles of the children at the orphanage. She still thought of Ethan sometimes, but not with longing anymore, just a quiet appreciation for what they once had and for how far she had come. One sunny Saturday, she was at the orphanage reading to the kids when the headmistress walked up to her with a letter. "This came in for you?" she said kindly. Maya frowned a little but took it. The handwriting was familiar. Ethan's. Her heart skipped, but she opened it anyway. Inside was a short, simple letter. "Dear Maya, by the time you read this, I'll probably be far away. My company offered me a new position overseas. I wanted to tell you in person, but I thought it would be unfair to disturb your peace. You were right. Love isn't enough when trust is gone, but I want you to know that meeting you changed my life. You taught me what real love is, what humility means, and what forgiveness feels like. I hope one day you'll look back and smile, not with pain, but with peace. Thank you for everything. Always, Ethan." Maya held the letter tightly against her chest and closed her eyes for a long moment. She didn't cry. Instead, she smiled softly. A warm tear slid down her cheek, but it wasn't sadness. It was closure. A few weeks later, she heard through Clarisse that Ethan had moved to Singapore and was helping start a foundation for underprivileged children. It made her heart swell with pride. He had truly changed, not just for her, but for himself. Maya felt grateful that their story had ended not with hate, but with growth. Time passed, and seasons changed. One rainy evening, Maya was on her way home when she saw a young couple arguing under a bus stop. The girl was crying, the boy shouting, his voice breaking with frustration. Maya stopped for a second, remembering a younger version of herself and Ethan standing in that same kind of storm. She approached gently and handed the girl her umbrella. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "make sure you listen before you walk away." The girl nodded, tears falling, and Maya smiled before walking off into the rain. She didn't look back. The storm didn't scare her anymore. That night, Maya sat by her window, watching the raindrops trace lines down the glass. She whispered, "We were never meant to last forever, Ethan, but we were meant to learn." And for the first time, she truly believed it. She picked up her phone and opened her email, scrolling through unread messages. There, buried in the list, was one from Ethan sent weeks ago, just before he left. She clicked it. It read, "If there's ever a day when you feel lost, just remember, you are my light in the dark. Always be that light for others." She smiled again, closed her laptop, and turned off the light. Outside, the rain stopped. The moon broke through the clouds, soft and bright, and inside, Maya finally felt whole. She realized that love doesn't always mean staying together. Sometimes love means letting someone go so both of you can become who you're meant to be. And as she drifted to sleep that night, her heart whispered one last thank you to the man who once broke it, and unknowingly helped her rebuild it stronger than before. A full year had passed since Ethan left for Singapore, and life had finally found a gentle rhythm for Maya. She had been promoted at work and now led a small team that looked up to her, not just for her intelligence, but for her calmness and compassion. She had learned to smile again, real smiles that came from peace, not from pretending. On weekends, she still visited the orphanage, where the children now called her Auntie Maya. She felt proud of the woman she had become, stronger, softer, wiser. One Friday evening, after finishing a long day at work, she received a message from Clarice that said, "Guess who's back in town?" Maya froze for a second and then typed, "Don't tell me, Ethan?" Clarice replied with a simple heart emoji and said, "He's here for a short visit. There's a charity gala tomorrow night. You should come." Maya hesitated. She hadn't seen him in a year. She wasn't sure how she'd feel if she did. But that night, lying in bed, she realized that she wasn't afraid anymore. She wanted to see him, not because she missed him, but because she was ready to face everything with peace. The next evening, she wore a simple navy blue dress and went to the gala. The hall was filled with lights, laughter, and music. She greeted familiar faces, smiled politely, and tried not to think too much about what would happen if she saw him. Then across the room, she did. Ethan stood near the stage, talking to one of the organizers. He looked different, calmer, more confident, and genuinely happy. When his eyes met hers, the noise around them seemed to fade. They didn't move for a few seconds, just looked at each other with quiet understanding. She walked over slowly, and he smiled. "You came," he said softly. She nodded. "Clarice told me about the event." He chuckled. "Of course she did." There was a pause before he added, "You look peaceful." She smiled faintly. "I am." They talked for a while about work, the children at the orphanage, and how life had unfolded since Singapore. Ethan told her about the foundation he started and how it had grown beyond what he expected. Maya listened with genuine admiration, proud of the man he had become. There was no bitterness left between them, only gratitude. When the music changed to a slow tune, Ethan hesitated for a moment and then asked quietly, "May I?" She looked at him, then smiled and placed her hand in his. They danced, not as lovers trying to fix the past, but as two people honoring what they once shared. The world seemed still as they moved gently under the soft lights. When the song ended, Ethan whispered, "I never stopped wishing you happiness, Maya." She smiled. "And I never stopped hoping you'd find peace." He looked down for a moment, his voice low. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me." She squeezed his hand gently and said, "Then I'm glad I happened." They both laughed softly, the kind of laugh that carries relief and closure. Later that night, as the gala ended, they walked out together into the quiet street. The air was cool, the city lights glowing faintly around them. They stood by the curb, neither wanting to break the silence until Ethan finally said, "Goodbye, Maya." She looked at him with a warm smile. "Goodbye, Ethan. Take care of yourself." He nodded, turned, and walked away. She watched him until he disappeared into the distance, her heart full, not of pain, but peace. When she got home, Maya stood by her window and looked at the sky. The stars were bright, the same way they had been on the night everything fell apart, but tonight they didn't make her sad. They made her grateful. She whispered softly, "Thank you, Ethan, for teaching me what love truly means." And somewhere miles away on his flight back to Singapore, Ethan looked out at the clouds and smiled to himself. He knew she would be okay, and for the first time in years, he felt completely free. That was how their story ended. Not with anger, not with heartbreak, but with two people walking separate paths with gratitude in their hearts. Because sometimes the best kind of love story is the one that teaches you how to let go beautifully. Months passed after that night at the gala, and Maya's life slowly bloomed into something beautiful and peaceful. She focused on her work and eventually opened her own small nonprofit that helps single mothers find jobs and childcare support. The project grew faster than she expected, and soon she was being invited to speak at conferences about forgiveness and emotional healing. She didn't speak much about her past with Ethan, but her words always carried a quiet depth that people could feel. One afternoon, as she prepared for a community event, she got an unexpected email. The subject line read, "An old friend reaching out." It was from Ethan. He wrote that he had gotten married recently to a woman he met through his charity work, and that he was moving to Canada with her to expand their organization. He thanked Maya for being his greatest lesson in love and said he had finally found peace. Maya smiled as she read the message. There was no sting, no tears, just a calm warmth in her heart. She replied simply, "I'm happy for you. Thank you for everything. You helped me find myself." And that was it. No long emotional exchange, no regrets, just peace. Years went by and Maya continued her work. She eventually wrote a book titled The Whole Story, where she shared lessons from her life, emphasizing how misunderstandings can destroy love if we let pride win. The book became unexpectedly popular, especially among young couples who said it helped them see love differently. One evening, during her book signing event, a journalist asked her, "Do you still believe in love after everything?" Maya smiled gently and said, "I never stopped believing in love. I just learned that real love isn't about never getting hurt. It's about growing stronger, even after you do." The audience clapped, and for a brief moment, she felt something inside her settle completely. As the event ended and she sat alone by the window of her hotel room overlooking the city lights, she thought about how far she had come, from being misunderstood, accused, and heartbroken, to being whole and fulfilled. She whispered softly, "He thought I cheated, but he never knew the whole story. Maybe he wasn't meant to. Maybe the story was mine to live, not his to understand." Outside, the night was calm, the stars quiet witnesses to her peace. She smiled, closed her eyes, and let the gentle hum of life remind her that sometimes love doesn't return, but it leaves behind something better: wisdom, peace, and strength. And that was how it ended. Not in reunion, not in revenge, but in redemption. She had told her whole story, and in doing so, she had finally written her own ending.